Welcome back to the Azura Media Club, home of the Bad Girl Coven. Today we're talking Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Let's go. I'm Emily, your coven leader, by the way. Yeah, so Crystal Skull, the final Indiana Jones movie I have to review for this channel. Finally, we're done. It's been a ride. I mean, I'm just so over it at this point. I want to be done with these so I can move on to other movies, And maybe the mentality is the same with everyone in Indiana Jones at the moment. I can understand why, especially after having watched this movie, not for bad reasons necessarily, but it's a tired franchise. And the fifth movie didn't do it any favors, I understand. But, I mean, over the years I've said it, ever since I walked out of the theater and talked to my friend about this, like, the next day after having seen it, I said to him, oh yeah, I liked it, I didn't think it was that bad, and he was like, it's horrible, it's the worst movie ever made, blah blah blah. He just railed on it for years and years and years, and then more recently he watched it again and he's like, yeah, it's not that bad. So I don't know. Obviously it's not the best Indiana Jones film, but for what it is, I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty good, not great. Not like on the level of like Temple of Doom or like obviously either of the other two, but as a follow-up from 2008, the post National Treasure era. It's 2008, right? Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm like 98% sure that's what it was. Anyway, it's funny because National Treasure was kind of inspired by these movies, and then of course Indiana Jones needed to come back for a fourth movie, and they did The City of Gold and Aliens, which is what was speculated to be maybe the next National Treasure movie. So that would be the life-altering information that Ben Gates talks about at the end of National Treasure 2 there, on page 42. So, yeah. So let's talk about the movie, I guess. I like it. I don't think it deserves all of the hate from over the years. The South Park jokes were like way overblown. Really, so over the top. It's like, I get it. Indiana Jones meant a lot to you people, but it means a lot to me too, and I'm okay with this, Like, was it the death of the franchise or whatever? Maybe. I don't know, I guess. Like, I know we didn't need it, but like for what it was, it's not so bad, I don't mind it. Everyone seems to mind it way too much, so I'm gonna need you guys to get all the way off my back about this one. If you like that reference, it's pretty easy, barely an inconvenience. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so the movie starts in Area 51, of all places. I guess that's where they sent the Ark. You see the Ark at the end of that sequence there. It's a pretty fun-ish sequence. Well, actually, the movie starts before that with like a drag race, basically. Like, like cars, not like drag queens or something. But yeah, then you see who you think is the U.S. Army, but it's actually the Russians, and they're gunning down the army to get into the base there. They have Indiana Jones and this other guy, Mac, who's a new character from this movie. A lot of new characters in this movie that want to be pre-established characters like Mac and Ox and Mutt. Marion is, of course, a pre-established character. So, spoilers for Crystal Skull, by the way. I'm sure you care if you've seen it or whatever in 2008 and hated it or whatever. Wasn't that bad. Anyway, so that's a fun sequence. I like that. He's got to, like, throw magnetic stuff around to find this crystal skull. They pay homage, obviously, to the original movie at the end there with the arc and all of that. I thought that was kind of cool. It's like, oh my god, no, we're not listening to this. We need Indiana Jones music, my friends. All right, he does make a line there later on, where he's like, I got a bad feeling about this or whatever, which is, of course, Han Solo's classic line that he says in every movie or whatever. Or, I guess somebody says it in every movie, but he says it in most of all the ones that he's in. Of course, you have the classic John Williams score. I mean, it's good. It's good enough, you know. It's not as good as the other scores, but it's fine. So yeah, that sequence is good. You know, like, you see Indy, and he doesn't look as old as he probably could have looked. I know that was a whole thing, like some digital de-aging or whatnot. Apparently they had better technology at the time where they could have done it better, but they didn't want to do that because they didn't want to make him look too young or something. I don't know. Obviously they did some of that in the next movie too, but this is Indy in the 50s now, you know, like, not his 50s, but the 50s. Like, the next movie takes place, like, in the 60s there or whatever, so I think he's canonically, like, 70-something in the next movie, so I don't know. It's fine. And they established this whole thing about how he, like, he helped with Roswell or something, like, examine stuff there or something, like in small bits, like they didn't want to tell anybody the full picture kind of thing. He references it, he calls, you know, like he says, oh, that thing in 47 or whatever, you know, blah blah blah, all that stuff, which is like what's in this crate that they're trying to track down the Russians or whatever, at Area 51. They're obviously Area 51 aliens, you know. It's like they make a reference to how it's like got all of the U.S.'s secrets in there and whatever. It's like, okay, that's about right. I mean, honestly, for, like, you could do a lot worse for an Indiana Jones movie. Area 51, yeah, you know, aliens, I get it. Yeah, it's like the next great mystery. It's like, who gives a shit about the Dial of Destiny, right? But aliens, that's cool. Crystal skulls, that's like a real thing. It's no religious artifact or whatever. It's not the Holy Grail or the Last Crusade, or even the Raiders of the Ark, you know, of the Covenant or anything. But it works, you know. It's interesting, you know. It's like there's a nice moment later too where it's like it's funny how there was some influence from National Treasure, since they were inspired by them, and now National Treasure did a little bit for these guys. It's kind of, there's a scene right near the end where they get and they find this room with all of this historical artifacts from, like, early, you know, like Egyptian and Mayans and stuff. It's all in this one area from different cultures and stuff. So it's like the room at the end of National Treasure where it's like, you know, you see all this stuff there. A little bit smaller than that, but it's still cool to see. That's the aspects of this movie I do like, is the archaeology aspects. You know, him tracking in the clues, you know, figuring all that stuff out. What does every Indiana Jones movie, what drags the movie down is stuff like when they're in the jungle doing these car chases for like 20 or 30 minutes. That stuff didn't need to be as long as it was. If that stuff was shorter, the movie would be shorter. It would be like an hour and 45 minutes instead of like 2 hours and 2 minutes, you know, like, then it would be like a snappier pace. It would feel better. But it is what it is. It didn't drag an entirely too much. I felt like just most of the stuff when they're in the jungle, like when they're at the base or whatever, trying to figure all that out, you know, right when Marion and what Ox kind of get introduced to the plot there. Um, and then after that with the car chase and all that really goes on just a tad bit too long. Like, cut like 10 minutes out of there and we'll be all right, you know, like the stuff after that is great. That's all, you know, the end of the movie there, you know, you find out of the aliens. I know everyone's like, oh, you know, the theaters, everyone was like, oh, fuck, aliens, that was stupid. But it's like, how are you surprised? Like, if you know anything about Crystal Skulls, or if you know anything, like, if you even just watched the movie, everywhere in there is aliens. It starts in Area fucking 51 with this, like, mummified, like, alien thing. How were you surprised that there was aliens at the end, right? Like, I wasn't surprised when I was a kid, like, in middle school or whatever. I knew, I had that inkling, you know, that inclination that it was going to be aliens. You know, and I didn't mind that. I mean, I know it's kind of, people felt at the time it was like jumping the shark for Indiana Jones. Yeah, you want to talk about jumping the shark? More of those scenes from Temple of Doom where, you know, where they fall off the waterfalls. Like, that would have definitely hit them. And then also they fell off a cliff at one point. Stuff like that. And then also, of course, the infamous fridge scene that happens after the Area 51 scene. Everyone loves to, you know, rant on about that. It's interesting. Matt Pat did a video on that, and it actually shows that he would have probably survived that physically, but he would have been very radiated no matter how much they cleaned him off, and he would have died later on of, like, cancer or something. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, you know, like, I think at that, for all we know, that is what happened to him, you know, at the end of the day. 10 or whatever years later, let's see, this takes place in, like, 57. It's like 60 something is the next movie, so it's like 10 years, probably like 12 years, because it's like near the moon launch or whatever. So by that point he might be feeling the effects. Maybe that's why he's so old and frail in the last movie, outside of Harrison Ford just being old, is because cancer and radiation poisoning and whatever. There's a theory for you. That's just a theory. An Emily theory. Thanks for watching. That's how I'll end this one. That's good. So... yeah. So there's that stuff. I mean, I know the whole fridge bit, like, okay. That's a little silly, too. The movie's a little silly. I mean, there are some silly things in the last few movies, but... I don't know, it was different, you know, like... Like, you could call some of the Sean Connery stuff pretty silly, but it's like, it works. They play off of each other so well. They're such good actors to each other. And, you know, here the acting's fine. It's about what you'd expect at this point. You know, it's not like it didn't work. All the characters work fairly well. I don't know about this Ox guy. Like, he's like this professor, or he was, and now he's just, like, crazy. And... I guess, like, that gives him all of the knowledge to... It just feels like he was spewing all of the knowledge. They never had to figure anything out. He would always just spew the knowledge that they needed. And then, you know, like... I don't know if that was really that earned. I mean, I know... I don't know. It just seemed a little off for me, that one. But anyway, so after that... there's a few cool things. You know, so we have Mutt, of course, Shia LaBeouf's character. Big star at the time, so I guess he has to be Indiana Jones' son. Which is fine. I don't mind that. I mean, I'm glad it was his son with Marion and none of the other, you know, like, well, the one lady's dead, and then, what's her face? We don't know what happened to her from, Willie. So, Anyway, yeah, you know, like, that's fine. I don't know. I like him and Indy's dynamic at some points. He's never really too much of a nuisance in the movie. He's fine, you know. That's the whole movie. It's fine, you know. It's an alright movie. I would say it's good. It's not a pain in the ass to watch or something, you know, like some movies. I don't really think any of the Indiana Jones movies are like a drag to watch as far as I can, you know, as far as I know, like except outside of some of those scenes that go on too long, like I said. Um, yeah, I like it. I had a good time with it. Anyway, so Mutt and Indy meet there, and then, you know, he's telling him about his mom, and he's like, "Oh, you don't know who my mom is?" And he's like, "Oh, there's a lot of Marys and blah 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 and all this stuff." It's like, um, they try to escape the Russians again, like through a car chase. You know, they're on the back of the motorcycle. It's fine. It's cool. I mean, it's all good action scenes. It's just like, I don't know. I don't want to say it feels generic or something because it's good. I mean, they look cool. They look nice. It's just like it just prolongs the movie. You know, it's like that scene too was probably like at least 15 to 20 minutes, and that could have been cut down a little bit. I mean, it was cool. I don't know. I'm just saying. Like, it was fine. You know, that's the whole mantra here. It was fine. Um, what else? You know, and so then after that, like, there's a cool. I mean, I like. I'll say this. I like all the scenes. I think all the scenes past that until, like I said, like that jungle section there work pretty well, because after that it's just kind of a lot of action. There's not a lot of figuring stuff out, but there's like a bit where they have to figure out about the Nazca lines or whatever, because he gives them a letter. That's what the Russians are after, is this letter or whatever. He has to translate it, but he needs to see the cell of somebody. Ox, was it? I mean, is that who was in the cell? I can't really remember, but they go to this guy's cell in like Peru. They look through that. They find the grave in a different part, somewhere else, and then this whole segment there where they're like crawling through, and then, you know, um he gets this area, and they find the guy that they were looking for from the book. I don't remember his name, but he has the crystal skull like behind him. But there was footprints leading in there, so like, why would somebody go in there and then go out? Unless it was like a trap or something. I didn't really understand that whole bit. Like, I know the Russians were out there just like waiting for him or whatever. But if they went in there, why wouldn't they take the crystal skull with them and then just like wait for Indy to go in there and come out again? Maybe they couldn't find it in there. If they couldn't find it in there, they're really idiots, because it was a very easy thing. You just do the same thing Indy did earlier. I mean, and didn't they have a crystal skull or something? Or like, what happened with that? With it, like the alien body? Like, why did they go through all the troubles to steal that? How did that become relevant to the plot? Or was that where the crystal skull was originally? But then why was there a crystal skull down there? I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know. Not that it doesn't make sense. I don't know all the little intricacies of the plot. You know, I paid attention. I watched the movie. Stuff like that, they kind of just gloss over at some parts. So it's not really, like, key information or whatever. I don't know. Explain it to me in the comments, I guess. You know, every other movie, I never had to, like, question this kind of stuff. You know, like, it all just kind of made sense. But I've seen those movies, like, a lot of times. I haven't, like, really seen this movie in full, like, this time and when I saw it in theaters. So, maybe one other time, if even. Mostly I'd just watch it on the side, or if it was on TV or something and my family was watching it, I'd just watch like bits and pieces until we changed it, you know? It's like the other movies I've consistently sat down and watched a bunch of times, except for the fifth one. Obviously, I've only seen that once. But, yeah. Then after that, like I said, it's just like a bunch of action sequences until you get to the ending there where they find the City of Gold. But they have to do like a couple puzzles to get in there, and then like they end up finding the spot, and there's like these 13 um, crystal alien guys there that are apparently all part of the same alien. And so when they return the skull to the Russian lady's there, and she's like, I want all the knowledge in the universe. So apparently the alien gives that to her, and her eyes catch on fire or something. She gets like sucked up into the ship. She like, and then it's this whole thing. It's like they're not even aliens. They're like interdimensional beings or something from like in between space. Like, I don't know. It's just odd stuff. Like where did that come from? Like, how do they know that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is this the lore of Crystal Skull people or something that just like ship between the spaces? It's like Hilda or something. You know, shout out to you if you get that Hilda reference, you know, with the space between spaces or whatever. Anyway, that's the whole movie. That's literally it. That's like the whole thing. I mean, I might have missed some key details in there somewhere, but I mean, like, those are kind of all the scenes laid out. I might have forgotten a couple, but those are all the like main things that happen. Like I said, I mean, I don't mind this movie. I think it works. I think it, for an Indiana Jones movie in 2008 or whatever, it did all right. You know, it worked. I thought it was fine. Um, do I think it deserves all the hate that everyone lays upon it, like, you know, over the years? No. I mean, I think it's an alright movie. I think it's pretty good. Um, like Butters, you know, everyone's coming out of these. Oh my god, how could they do that to you? I thought it was pretty good. You know, like that's me. I was Butters. Be Butters, because Butters is awesome. Um, yeah, I thought it was like a decent um nostalgia kickback of Indiana Jones. You know, like they like to do these days. Um, it might have been like kind of one of the starts of that era of like, let's bring stuff back for nostalgic purposes or whatever. But you know, as like one last ride, you know, and it ends nicely. I mean, he gets married and stuff to Marion finally, and you know, it kind of sets up like Shia LaBeouf Mutt there to be the next Indiana Jones, but it's like, you know, that really never materialized. He just kind of gets a mention in the next movie, like, yeah, I guess, like, he's dead now. Okay, that really went somewhere. Um, but I don't blame Shia LaBeouf for not wanting to be in the fifth movie, so whatever. Um, oh, I do like how they called back to Sean Connery and Marcus. There was a scene in there about that where I always like that scene where um, he's like at his desk and he's like, yeah, you know, it's unfortunate that they all like died within the last few years or whatever. It's been rough for that, and it's like, oh, that's cool that they called that out. And Sean Connery really did die in 2020 there. It's crazy. Um, I kind of forgot about that. I like looked that up when that scene played, and before I even saw the results, I'm like, yeah, I do remember him, I think, dying. Uh, so yeah, and he did in 2020 there, one of the victims of that year. So unfortunate. So yeah, but I like it. I think it's pretty decent. It's a good Indiana Jones movie. You know, the acting's still good. The action scenes, they go on for a little long. That's Indiana Jones for you, you know. all the puzzle solving stuff is nice. You know, it's nice to just have another movie. I mean, is it necessary? Not really, but I don't hate it. I don't think it's terrible or anything. I think it's an alright, you know, fun enough action movie for that summer whenever it came out in like 2008 or whatever. And even then it was like people hated it, and I understand, but I I just don't see it. It's not something worth making a fuss over. It's pretty good, you know. If you want to make a stink about the fifth movie, go ahead. I mean, even that is just like, I know the quality is dropping, you know, from this movie to that one, which already dropped from the other movies, but it's like, I don't think these movies are worth like raising a fuss about. You know, like, they didn't piss me off or anything. They just kind of, I don't know. I was mostly indifferent to the fifth one, I guess. This one's all right. You know, I liked it. I thought there was some good stuff going on here. Some good scenes, some good stuff. I mean, it's not like one of my favorite movies of all time or anything. But if somebody asked me, is Crystal Skull bad? Like, is it as bad as everyone's saying? I'm gonna be like, nah, it's really not that bad. I mean, it's a pretty all right movie. It's pretty decent. You know, it's good. I would call it just like flat good, not like awesome or anything. But fuck is this? Oh, okay. Cool. That's odd. I don't know what the fuck happened there. Anyway. Um. Yeah. I don't know. It's a good return to form for Indiana Jones. It's just another little side adventure. Kind of a Temple of Doom situation where it's just a offshoot little thing we're looking for, not some historically important artifact. I think that's when Indiana Jones is at his best, is when he's looking for those, you know? So, I don't know what else he could look for, but he doesn't need to look for anything anymore because, you know, it's over. Let Harrison Ford rest. Don't reboot Indiana Jones. Just let it die. Let it die. Let it simmer off, you know? So, yeah. Crystal Skull, pretty alright. I'm gonna give it, the flat 7 out of 10, you know? I think that's where it lands, you know? So, the worst Indiana Jones movie, question mark? Not really. I mean, that's still Dial of Destiny. Not because I hated it, just because it's the least good of 5, you know, 4 great movies. I mean, 3 great movies, a 4th pretty good movie, and then a 5th, like, yeah, this is alright kind of movie, you know, so they need to stop making these movies. Let Harrison Ford rest. Crystal Skull, pretty okay. So, until next time, this has been Emily saying, stick around, subscribe to join the Bad Girl Coven. Magic comes from the heart, and that's just a theory, an Emily theory. Emily,